we already cover about the virtual machine backup function. Also look into what kinds of backup mode do we have, per VM backup chain, then the agent backup, it supports for Windows, Linux, and also Mac machine. And lastly, we cover the NAS backup. Okay. So you'll see that over there, most of the things are using normal proxy or agent to read the data. Okay. So now when we talk about virtual machine backup, it's a little bit more complex because we are looking into retrieving virtual machine data utilizing VM snapshot level. Okay, that need to leverage on the ESXi machine level. That's why over here you will see for VMware especially, we have this special topic called transport mode. Okay. Now in VMware, okay, so who will be the one that retrieve your virtual machine data? The backup proxy. Okay. And the backup proxy will also be the one who actually write and restore data back to your production environment. Now for Hyper-V, it's pretty easy. It's either on-host or off-host proxy. Nutanix, okay, will be using their proxy with one of these kind of method. Okay, so it's actually quite related to each other. But you see that over here, for VMware, they comes with more options to be selected. So first thing you will see, we have automatic selection. Now when we are utilizing automatic selection, when a backup job starts, we will initially try to utilize your backup proxy either with direct storage access. If they cannot get access using this mode, then they will try to use virtual appliance. And lastly, network. So automatic selection, they will have their own priority to choose. Okay. So in some cases, maybe it's a good idea for you to fix the mode in order for you to actually making sure your backup will be utilizing a single mode to maybe stabilize the performance. And if anything happens, at least you know that your infrastructure need to be troubleshooted, things like this. Okay? So if you're using NFS DSL in VMware, it's better also to choose the mode instead. If not, it might cause some other issue that we'll also discuss later. So over here, you will see these are VMware mode, and we also will discuss it more in depth later in each of the mode. How about Hyper-V and Nutanix? Are pretty easy. The first thing, when you see this direct storage access, it is similar to Hyper-V. Off-host, backup, proxy. Okay. Now, Hyper-V off-host backup proxy will require usually a physical machine that can connect direct to the storage. Okay. So this particular Hyper-V will require also with storage snapshot integration. Okay. Now for VMware, we can choose to use it or not. For Hyper-V, if you plan to deploy off-host backup proxy type, you need to have the storage snapshot integration instead. Okay. So this is something similar. So for Veeam now, they don't really cover about the Hyper-V on-host, off-host anymore. Okay, and by default, most of the time, Veeam will be utilizing on-host backup proxy. Okay, they don't really need to bother a lot of additional configuration. It just works. Okay, that's about it. But if you are keen on looking into this particular option, I already give you the idea. You can look for Veeam Hyper-V off-host backup proxy for the documentation. Okay, to read up what are the requirements additionally for that. Okay. So this is for Hyper-V, and then when we look into virtual appliance mode in VMware, this is similar to Hyper-V on-host proxy. Okay. So if you utilize the default Hyper-V proxy mode, which we install the Veeam data mover service into the Hyper-V host, it will be the on-host proxy, and it works quite similar to the virtual appliance mode basically. Okay, so virtual appliance mode here works quite similar. Okay. but it's not entirely 100% similar because they are running from different platforms. Okay, just that the architecture, the way they used to retrieve your VM data is a bit similar. Okay, so virtual transport also used in Nutanix, AHV, virtual proxy. Okay. So in Nutanix AHV, usually they will deploy a virtual proxy. I'm not sure about Nutanix. Maybe they are having a limitation to allow the Nutanix storage to connect from external devices or equipment. Then the only way to access will be utilizing virtual machine proxy. That works quite similar to virtual appliance mode, for example. All right. So this will be the particular virtual appliance option, similar to Nutanix. So we'll look into VMware one by one. How does it work actually? And then you have a better idea here. Okay, pretty easy. So first thing, we have direct storage access. So in direct storage access, we have two different options. One will be direct SAN access, where we are looking into your SAN storage here. That is providing the LAN access to your ESXi host, for example. Okay, so the LAN will be mapped to your ESXi host. So the connectivity here will be running either FC or iSCSI. Okay, pretty easy. These two types. One is fiber channel, the other one is IP-based Ethernet connectivity. So for this direct storage access, you will see that fiber channel will require physical machine proxy. Okay, PL stands for physical, yeah. iSCSI, on the other hand, can be physical machine or virtual machine proxy, no issue. Okay. So if you're running on physical machine, make sure that your ESXi network is able to connect to the iSCSI network. Okay, meaning you have an uplink or some trunk link going through that particular network equipment. If you're using a standalone physical machine, it's easy for you to actually plug in and connect to that particular network point of view. So from the infrastructure requirement, we know that what kinds of proxy that we can deploy, first thing. Now, if you're using FC, we might require to do some SAN zoning configuration and also add on some storage configuration here for the LAN. So if we can change or configure the storage and also the storage network, then this particular mode will be possible. Okay. This is first thing to allow the backup proxy able to see the LAN from the disk manager. Okay, at least from Windows point of view. So I will able to see the raw LAN already mapped to me, but I will not mount it because the file system is used by ESXi. No point for me to mount. It will actually cause more issue later. Okay, so I will only need to detect the disk shown in the disk manager. Can we use backup proxy as virtual machine with RDM? Just a moment, yeah. Proxy VM just require to have one VM PK for OS and application. Okay. Now remember, this particular connectivity is only to allow your backup proxy to access to the storage directly. So your backup proxy can be a virtual machine. Your proxy can be VM if the data store is using iSCSI. Now you need to utilize OS level iSCSI connection to the SAN storage, not the RDM presented by ESXi. Now you need to be careful here, yeah? There are a few types of RDM connectivity, okay? So one being the storage system actually present the LUN disk to the ESXi first, and then from the ESXi we present it to the VM. Now those are for data access. Okay? Those are for data access. Now those kind of RDM is not utilized and not supported here in the direct storage access. You need to separate the scenario here. Over here, the backup proxy is mainly used to connect to your data store LUN. Okay? Your data store LUN, yeah? Why? Because I need to read your virtual machine data. Your virtual machine is sitting here. Okay, so I am not using the LUN as my data disk. Instead, I am just establishing the connectivity to the storage to retrieve the virtual machine data. That's why it doesn't make sense to utilize your normal ESXi RDM to the VM or virtual RDM. Those are different things. Those are used for virtual machine data disk. Here you will see has a backup proxy. It can be a physical or virtual. If you are running virtual, for example, this guy is your proxy. I need to connect to the storage directly using maybe your iSCSI initiator directly. Then it will work. Okay? Hopefully you get my idea here, yeah? Lum? Okay. So we are talking about establishing connectivity to the storage to retrieve the virtual machine data. Okay, it's not the normal virtual machine RDM data this type, yeah? Okay, because from VM you have a few options. One will being directly connect using iSCSI initiator from the virtual switch network going out to the storage. So this is supported. Okay? But if you're talking about the RDM map from the ESXi to the VM, it doesn't work like that. Okay? Because we are trying to access to your VMFS file system data store here. Okay? So if this infrastructure is allowed, after you configure all those storage configuration, network, etc. Okay, so when the backup job kicks in, the Vim backup server will locate the ESXi to see whether it is still online, then the backup proxy, and also the backup repository. When all these required components are online, then I will initiate the backup job starts. The backup proxy will then contact your ESXi machine, okay, to locate the virtual machine that they are trying to back up, for example. So after the virtual machine is identified, backup server will tell the ESXi machine to create a snapshot for that VM. Now the problem over here for your backup proxy is when I see the LUN, it will consider be raw data because it is a VMFS file system that I cannot understand straight away. Okay, so what kinds of data and which block do I need to read? I will require the ESXi machine to tell me. So after the ESXi machine created the snapshot on the virtual machine level, then they will actually tell the backup proxy, okay, your data is sitting in which block. For example, you need to read it out as your backup data for that particular VM. So all this will require ESXi machine help, and also including your CBT. Everything will be done based on the ESXi machine communication. Okay. So you will see here the management port for the ESXi is mainly used for communication like this. Your actual data, okay, will be transferring via number 6 here, as you can see. So my VM data, backup data via this network is either FC or iSCSI. So I can utilize storage level connectivity performance to read and retrieve my virtual machine data before I get it processed and send it to the backup repository. Okay. So you will see that over here, direct send access is looking into how your backup proxy able to connect to your production storage that is holding your data store LUN resources. It comes with VMFS file system, either utilizing FC or iSCSI. So from here, you will see that we don't incur additional load to the ESXi. Okay, your loading will be on the backup proxy usually. Now, if your backup proxy is a VM, then yes, we will generate some load to the ESXi machine here. Okay. If not, you will see that your actual data transfer will be coming from the storage system straightforward. Okay, so this will be the highest possible speeds of data retrieval available in VMware usually. Okay, but you will see that the network connectivity is pretty fast. We still need to rely on the production storage overall resources and performance to serve you the data. That's why after we fine-tune all these things, finally you will see that the bottleneck will be in source, maybe under your production data store. Over there, the storage system is just too heavy loaded. They might not able to optimize or give you the full speeds of data read using either FC or iSCSI. It might get slowed down due to the storage system loading. Right? So this is direct send. It's just the methods of how your backup proxy will be connecting to your virtual machine data. Then if you are not using send, we have another option called direct NFS. Any question for direct send access they want to ask? Okay, I think it should be clear here, right? Okay, let's see. Okay, let me show. So if your data store in your ESXi is utilizing NFS share, okay, so it's a bit more direct, whereby your backup proxy need to connect to the NFS LAN connectivity in order for them to read your storage data. Okay, so this is the main criteria. That's why the backup proxy can be physical or virtual, no issue. Connecting to the NFS storage network, and then they're able to see the file share. So from your storage, I will need to add on to allow the backup proxy IP or hostname to be able to connect to the NFS share if you have any security configuration going on there. Okay. So now from the ESXi, when they create a snapshot, the backup proxy will able to see the file together with the ESXi help. They know based on CBT which particular data to read in order to create their incremental backup file. So direct NFS, same thing. We need to configure on the NFS network and also on the NAS storage to allow the access before we can actually connect to it. So same thing here. We do not need to mount the file system. Okay? So you just need to make sure all these are allowed, and then the ESXi machine will help you to do the rest. Okay? So if you found that in one environment the storage is not able to change due to security concerns, etc., storage network is not accessible by any VM whatsoever, and they do not generally have a physical machine to help you, then we might need to fall back to this virtual appliance mode. Now, virtual appliance mode, on the other hand, is easier to set up because we do not need to touch on the storage system configuration. So the disadvantage here will be we are relying on the connectivity that is available from the ESXi, and virtual appliance mode will require virtual machine-based proxy to run on one particular cluster usually. So I will require to utilize ESXi, CPU, RAM, memory, network, etc. And then I will leverage on the connectivity that the ESXi machine has. That's why over here, utilizing virtual appliance mode, the disadvantage here will be generating additional overheads on the ESXi machine. Okay? And this mode, if you have an NFS data store, they will also give you some potential problem. Okay, so we'll add on later. So how this mode actually works, pretty easy. Okay, so you will see that your particular backup proxy here, I come with my own original VMDK. So this original VMDK is my operating system plus application, for example, for me to prepare my proxy. Now, all these mode, okay, for your VMware backup proxy, we do support Windows or Linux operating system. Okay? So in V11, Linux operating system is fully supported for all these different modes already. So next thing, for this virtual machine, for example, if I would like to back up the data, I will have my own original VMDK here, right? Okay. Now, when I create a snapshot, after I create a snapshot, I will have my own additional Delta VMDK. Okay. Now, your Delta VMDK will use to capture new and change data. They use redirection. Your original VMDK here, they will log as read only. Okay? Log as read only in one point in time. So after this original VMDK will get what we call hot at. Now all this term is from VMware actually. Now hot at is basically mounting one VMDK into maybe another virtual machine, for example. Now with this hot at, your backup proxy now can see the virtual machine VMDK disk, and then they can retrieve the data directly. Okay? So if you do the lab before, if you're using virtual appliance mode, you can check inside the virtual machine. If it is a Windows, easier, you can bring up the disk manager. When the backup job runs, right, you will see the disk manager in the backup proxy start to have additional disk mounted. Even in virtual appliance mode, they will see multiple VMDK mounted to the backup proxy because they are now mounting and reading the virtual machine data. Okay. So this is how the virtual appliance mode works, whereby the virtual machine is running inside the cluster. I can actually mount virtual machine disk from the particular same host. If you're using a shared storage, for example, SAN-based or NAS-based, the virtual machine will be able to see the other virtual machine data too, if you want to. Okay. Now, this virtual appliance mode is very flexible. They can support FC types of data store, iSCSI use, then local disk data store, vSAN, and also VVO, okay, virtual volume. So if the environment is using virtual volume storage, where your VMDK is created as an object volume, they can also utilize this mode to back up the virtual machine data, similar to vSAN. Okay. So this mode is much more flexible. They can support a lot more different storage type, unlike the direct storage access. Now you will see that over here, we do not have NFS straight away, right? Okay. Because NFS, if you want to utilize this mode, NFS require registry key change, okay, on the backup server. Now we need to change some registry key, okay, on the backup server. This is to tell the backup server, I need to utilize virtual appliance mode, but using NFS data store. Now, why do we need to do this? Pretty easy. This is actually a limitation in VMware. Okay, why? Now, over here, if I have a NFS data store, okay, NFS data store, yeah. Now, the virtual machine is running on ESXi1 and ESXi2. Okay. Now, if I try to do all that from virtual machine running on ESXi2 to VM running on ESXi1, for example, things like this. Now, from 1 to 2, if I do all that like this, they are doing cross host, right? This VM will have done issue on NFS data store. If the VM is running on NFS data store, we are not allowed to actually perform this kind of mounting. Okay? Because this is a limitation on the NFS file-based shared access. When the virtual machine is running on ESXi1, the file is actually owned by ESXi1, it's actually get locked. Now, if you want to mount it to ESXi2, they do allow, but your original connectivity for the virtual machine will get disconnected, and the VM will basically offline, things like this. Okay, so you have no access to the VM extra, what we call stun issue. So they will affect your productivity. And your VM will be down. It's not an online backup anymore. Okay? That's why in order to do this, we are not allowed to do all that like this. In order not to generate some stun issue, then what is the solution? If I have a local proxy on the same ESXi machine, I can perform all that like this. Okay? Then, if you are mounting VMDK on the same host, it does not generate stun issue because the file is actually owned by the same host still. I can mount it freely to any VM that is running on the same ESXi host. Okay. So this is the only limitation if you're using NFS, that's all. And if you plan to go with virtual appliance, well, I need to do some registry key change. That's why if you're using NFS DSL, we will first recommend to use direct storage access using NFS storage connectivity straight away. If for certain reason due to configuration network limitation, we need to go with this mode, then you need to consider to change the registry key where the backup server will try to locate a local proxy to perform a backup instead to avoid this stun issue to happen. Okay, so let me check. Vim virtual appliance NFS registry key. Okay, so I just found one of the document that you will see here, tuning vSphere. Okay, so this is the best practices. Okay, so this is the best practices page. Now you will see that from here, they do mention about the registry key change for your hot mode for NFS. Now, if for certain reason you cannot utilize direct NFS, then you need to change this in your particular backup server, things like this. Okay? So over here, this will give you step-by-step guide what you need to do and change in order for you to get the below result, things like this. Okay? So this is from the Vim best practices page. They already have all this information available there. Okay? That's why remember for virtual appliance mode, if you require to use it on an NFS DSL, then I will need to have this additional registry key. And also each ESXi host will require a local proxy similar to the local disk data store. And because that will be the only place and connectivity available from your physical ESXi to your internal disk, etc. Okay, so this is virtual appliance mode. Any questions so far they want to ask? No issue, yeah? So this is virtual appliance mode. And then lastly, we have the network mode. Okay. So network mode here is the last option that is available. Network mode is the easiest to set up, and after you add on the ESXi to your backup server, create the job itself, when the ESXi is online, this mode will always work. Okay? They do not require a lot of additional complex configuration, etc. This mode is utilizing ESXi, VM kernel management port. Okay? Now, they are not using this port for communication only. They will be using this port also for your actual backup traffic. Okay, so your actual backup data transfer will be utilizing this port itself. So this mode will always work because if your ESXi is still online, this mode will able to run. Okay, so the only disadvantage here will be performance because using network mode, we also call it the NBD options. Okay, this is what we call network block device. Network block device. Now, using network block device, this is a term from VMware. Okay, VMware, actually they do have throttle on VM kernel port. Okay, they do have throttling on the VM kernel port to have 40% bandwidth for backup. VM kernel port 40% for backup. So you will see that over here, if I'm using 1 G, I can get up to like 400 megabit per second only. That's why you will see if you're using 10 GE port for your management, you can get at least 4 gigabyte per second. That's why using 10G, maybe you can still utilize this mode. It will still get your backup job done, but it will be in a slower pace because they cannot go up to 10G performance, and NFS data store will be even slower. Okay, NFS data store will also slower when you run on this mode. So it will be even lower than 400 meg or 4 gigabit. So this mode is good because it can work if your ESXi is online. Okay, no additional configuration, etc., hiccup, all these things. Any physical virtual backup proxy can able to support this mode. So everything will rely on the ESXi host level to help you to retrieve the data before sending it to you. Okay, so the disadvantage mainly will be performance. That's why if we can go with the earlier few mode, we usually will be preferring those options first. And lastly, if they have some infrastructure issue, etc., that's not able to connect, this will be the last option that they will use usually. Okay, so this is network mode, and all this mode that we discussed, it is utilizing VMware level virtual machine snapshot to actually perform the backup. Okay, so your snapshot is still running on the ESXi data store level, or virtual machine level. So let's see. Any question they want to ask here before we move into the storage integration for VMware that will utilize storage level snapshot to perform the backup? Okay, any questions they want to ask before I move on further? Okay, I think not. Okay, so next thing, if you say that your virtual machine snapshot might give you some additional problem to the production. Okay, so how can we actually fix the issue, especially when you are performing backup during office hour, where there's a lot of changes going on to your virtual machine that will cause the VM snapshot to grow. Now, we have another additional option here called the storage integration using storage snapshot. Okay, this backup from storage snapshot, in some documentation they call it the BFSS. So over here you will see virtual machine snapshot here. They capture new and also change data. So the growth rate will be higher. But for storage system, usually we will capture change data only. So as compared to virtual machine snapshot, the growth rate will usually be lower, and a snapshot usually will be done on the block level of this. Your new data will be written to the original disk or location. Okay. So first thing, from the snapshot point of view, storage snapshot will be much more efficient as compared to VM snapshot, and it usually does not cause a lot of problem like what VM snapshot will have. Okay, because from VMware, they have official statement telling end user customer saying that the VM snapshot should be kept within 24 hours. Maximum they can support is up to 72 hours. If you have more than that, it will be an unsupported environment, and when you have issue, maybe you need to shut down the VM to actually clean up the snapshot, for example. Okay, so over here you will see utilizing the storage snapshot. I will require here using the backup proxy, going with direct storage access mode. So using storage snapshot, we need to have direct storage access because this is the only way for you to read your storage level snapshot to retrieve your virtual machine data. Alright. So in order to utilize this mode, direct storage access need to be prepared on your backup proxy. But using direct storage access, this will be additional thing. You can utilize storage snapshot, or you can still utilize the virtual machine snapshot if you want to. Okay. So this is some requirement that we need to do. Now, later I will show some demo what you need to do in order to utilize this option. And I already sent you the documentation yesterday, where we have the particular snapshot integration in the agent backup. They do mention what options or what storage system is supported. So how does this work? It's pretty easy. First thing, now, although I am utilizing storage integration, I still require the virtual machine snapshot to be created. Yeah. So first here will be the standard VM backup. If I am backing up my virtual machine without using storage snapshot, you will see that virtual machine snapshot created. First thing. After that, I will be utilizing it to retrieve my data for backup. After the backup has been done, only I will delete the virtual machine snapshot. Now you will see that your VM snapshot lifetime will be longer, and it will cause your snapshot to grow in size, and eventually when you delete it, it might cause you additional problem, and your data store free space will need to have more to cater this particular workload. Okay, so usually when we delete snapshot, we have a lot of concerns such as free space on your data store, your actual storage load in your data store. If deleting the snapshot task is holding up too much resources, VMware will sometime eventually keep it a hold. Okay? Just not to congest your VM performance, if not everything will be going slower than expected. That's why it will cause the VM snapshot removal to get some issue. Okay, so if you know that your virtual machine snapshot will grow in time, okay, it will grow size in time, then maybe it's a better idea to go with storage integration. So using storage integration, okay, we will create additional thing here called the storage snapshot. So when we initiate a backup, VM snapshot will need to be done still. Because why? The VM snapshot will have the application aware processing, all those things to prepare the VM. After the virtual machine snapshot is created, then I will create additional storage snapshot to reflect the same data. Okay? So they are reflecting the same application consistent data on the storage level snapshot. And then after that, I will delete the VM snapshot. So you will see that as compared to the earlier one, your VM snapshot will happen within a seconds or minutes level. Okay, pretty short in lifetime. Deleting the VM snapshot will have no issue. After that, I will utilize the storage snapshot to retrieve my data for backup. After that, delete the storage snapshot. So deleting storage snapshot, first thing, size will be lower as compared to VM snapshot, and they are doing on block level on the storage system. It will be much more efficient, although they do require some additional load too. Right? So this is for storage integration. For configuration, pretty easy. You do not have it covered in your lab actually, so let me just show you a bit from my environment. I do this testing before with NetApp storage, which is another supported model. Okay. So now, first thing, before you can utilize storage snapshot for backup, we need to have a supported storage system. Add into the storage infrastructure first. So you see that from my environment, I am utilizing NetApp storage. Okay, NetApp storage. So using this NetApp storage, I need to add in the storage with the management IP and then the user account to able to detect the volume that you have created. Now this volume can be a NAS volume. For my case here is a NAS NFS volume. It can be your LUN volume that is mapped to your storage, to your ESXi, etc. Now Veeam will actually get this information also from the ESXi machine to actually match the volume that you're currently using. Okay. So I need to add in the storage here, first thing. Then that's about it. For storage system conversion, this is the only thing you need to do. Okay? Make sure it is supported, add in here first thing. Then next thing, we need to have a proxy that can run on direct storage access first thing. So you will see here, transport mode, I need to select direct storage access. So this will also cover direct NFS, SAN storage also. Okay, so my case, I'm using NFS there so. Okay, so this is one of the things that you need to prepare. Now, next thing, when I create my job, as you can see here, okay, when I create my job, I will need to just select the VM that is running from the same data source for NFS, okay, from the NetApp. Then from the storage file, I need to select the correct proxy, okay, to initiate direct storage access. And then from the advanced button here, you will see integration. By default, all your virtual machine backup job come with this option already by default. Okay? So by default, we are preferred to use storage snapshot for backup. Okay? So this is the options available. So if the infrastructure is allowed, when they detect, okay, the supported storage is added, the virtual machine is running on that storage system, I will then utilize storage level snapshot to perform the backup. Okay, so all this will require to configure on the job level. And then after you have all this, you will see that the job, when they run, yeah, first thing, okay, so you will see here, the VM is available. I will be using this VM to process the data. So you will see that all VM required infrastructure is assigned, and then VM has been prepared for storage snapshot. You will see that over here, when I go to the virtual machine, I will still need to create a snapshot, then collect the disk file, and then remove the snapshot later. This is to facilitate after I create the snapshot on the VM level, and then when you go out, you will see that system level, they will create the storage snapshot here for backup. Okay, after I create the storage snapshot, then only I remove the virtual machine snapshot. Then utilizing this storage snapshot, what they do, they will be reading your data for backup via storage snapshot integration, as you can see. Hard disk one data from storage snapshot on NetApp. So all this is based on automatic detection, and Veeam will help you to do the rest. So configuration-wise is pretty easy. Okay. So after the backup has been done here, and you will see that they conclude everything, and from the system level, they will then unexport and delete the storage snapshot. Okay. So configuration-wise, you just need to add in the supported storage, make sure your proxy have direct storage access, create a job, and then Veeam will actually detect and try to utilize this mode to back up your virtual machine data. Okay, so it's not included in your lab. Yeah, that's why if you want to try out yourself, maybe you need to set up a simulator for your storage before you can utilize this option to play around. Okay, so this is for storage integration. Any question you want to ask before we conclude this particular topic? Okay, so now over here you see for different options of access to your virtual machine data, you will see that virtual appliance mode here, usually they will put in not recommended for NFS storage. Okay? So not recommended here, not saying that it is not supported, just that you need to have some additional configuration in order for you to establish virtual appliance proxy using NFS storage that I mentioned earlier, using the registry key, etc. Local storage can be supported by using virtual appliance and network mode. Okay, vSAN, your Vivo, all can be done by virtual appliance and also network mode over here. Okay, pretty easy. So those are for the transport mode for your VMware virtual machine data retrieval. Make sure that. Okay, let's see on the time. Okay.